Okay, welcome back. We're still in Unit 5, the videos. After the videos, we'll finish up Unit 5 for the day. Still day 3.
The driver's best friend, empty space. Around the car, it provides a form of protection. It won't keep others away, but it allows time to react. It's a little like money in the bank, something that's there when we need it. This session is all about space. Not up there, but around us when we drive. In front of the car, on both sides, and behind. This is one of the more common crashes. Last year there were about 250,000 of them. And all of them could have been prevented with space by just giving ourselves a little more of it. We are the only ones who control the space ahead. That's why the law holds the vehicle behind responsible for rear-end collisions. It doesn't matter if the vehicle ahead stopped suddenly without any warning, or why it stopped. If we're far enough back, we'll have time to stop gradually, and so will the car behind us. The faster we go, the more room we'll need to stop, and the further behind we need to be. There's an easy way to find a safe distance at any speed. It's called the 2-second rule, and it goes like this. When the car ahead passes some point, like a pavement marking, we'll count off 2 seconds. 1 1001, 1 1002. If we reach the same point before we finish 1002, we're too close. Let's try. Ready? 1001. No wonder we crashed. Let's go back to the second scene. Ready? 1001, 1002. That's why we were able to stop in time.
Allowing enough space helps prevent situations like this. It also smooths out traffic flow by avoiding starts and stops that stall traffic.
But there are times when a greater distance is warranted. One is on a wet or slippery surface where we can't stop as quickly. Here, 3 or 4 seconds is appropriate, depending on how slippery the surface is. Another time is when we're following oversized vehicles like trucks, buses, or RVs.
The guy behind sure wants to pass. Opening up a space in front helps him pass safely.
Another good time to open up a little space is when we're following a truck with loose cargo that could fall off, or someone who could fall. Extra following distance is a good idea for people hauling loads that could make their driving a little erratic. And finally, a little extra space is a good idea when we stop behind anyone on a hill. They may drop back a little as they release the brake. Actually, the best following distance is not following at all. Where traffic is sparse, we can drop back far enough to be completely independent of cars ahead. Even if we're not paying the closest attention, we still have plenty of time to respond to anything that happens. Unfortunately, some drivers do this in heavy traffic. They may find it relaxing, but other drivers find it annoying. For one, it reduces the capacity of the road. It's like sending out a train with half the cars empty. For another, it makes for trouble as cars struggle to get around the slowpoke. A 2 to 3 second following distance strikes a good balance between the needs of safety and the need for everyone to get where they're going. Keeping space in front is important not only because there are a lot of rear-end collisions, but because they are collisions we can prevent. We control the space in front of us. Another space that we need to protect is the space to the side. Remember this? With traffic so light, the best way to avoid this kind of problem is not to be close to a car in the next lane in the first place. Pass or drop back. That could happen anytime. It's better to be as far away from parked cars as possible. It not only keeps us away from others, it makes it easier for others to see us. Here, on the other hand, the left side of the lane puts us pretty close to oncoming cars. A thin paint stripe isn't much protection.
What now? We have oncoming traffic on the left and parked cars on the right.
Not much choice but to split the difference and steer a middle course between the two rows of cars. The best way to protect our flank in this case is to give room. This works out best for everyone. There's room to get by, but let's wait. Good thing we did. When we're between a rock and a hard place like that, sometimes it's best to deal with them one at a time. We don't have a lot of control over the space behind us, but what we can do is try to keep a steady pace. When we have to slow down, we try to alert the driver behind.
When we have to stop, we need to pull out of the traffic stream completely.
If we need to parallel park with cars behind us, it's often best to pull straight into the spot and let traffic pass. When the way is clear, we can pull out and really parallel park. Protecting ourselves from a tailgater can be a particular challenge. What we don't want to do is antagonize him by flashing our brake lights or turning on the lights to make him think we're braking. If possible, switch to another lane. If that's not possible, slow down gradually. That will open up space in front and generally encourage passing. It's even worth pulling off the road to get rid of a stubborn case.
Getting there fast is why we drive instead of walk, and it's why we have highways like these. They let people get from one place to another quickly. The same for the goods they use. Unfortunately, not all the fast driving occurs on highways that can handle it. Driving too fast is involved in over 1.5 million crashes each year. Speed also makes any accident worse. As speed increases from 55 to 65 miles per hour, the chances of dying in any crash double. And from 55 to 75, they triple. Why does speed increase our chances of a crash? Well, the faster we are going, the longer it will take to stop if we have to. Like if someone pulls out in front of us. It will take us about a second to react and get our foot on the brake. That's pretty universal. Young people don't react any quicker than old people. At 60 miles an hour, we'll travel about 90 feet. Once we get the brakes applied, it's a contest between the brakes and the momentum of the car.
At 60 miles per hour, it'll take about another 180 feet to stop. Obviously, that's too long.
Let's see how this stop works in real time. Only this time, the car won't actually come all the way into our lane. If that car had been in front of us, there's no more helpless feeling than having your foot on the brake while you just keep on going. While reaction distance increases at the same rate as speed, braking distance increases at a much faster rate. A vehicle going 40 miles per hour needs 3 times as much distance to stop as one traveling 20 miles per hour, not twice as much. The braking distance required for a vehicle going 60 miles per hour is 9 times that of a vehicle going 20 miles per hour. The other thing that speed does is to make the car difficult to handle. We're much too close to stop, but the left lane is open, and at 35 miles an hour, we can easily swerve around it. However, look what happens at 60. Actually, as often as not, the driver loses control and ends up in a ditch. or around a pole. In a typical year, about 250,000 drivers lose control and crash trying to swerve.
Out on the road, the single biggest cause of crashes is drivers running into things they can't see, like a car coming from the side, a pedestrian stepping into the street, someone passing, even the car just ahead. Why can't they see? Do they need glasses? No. The reason they can't see is that they just aren't looking in the right place at the right time. The process of looking is referred to as visual search. It means that seeing well is more than simply taking in the highway scene. It requires actively searching places where trouble lurks. Experienced drivers learn the trouble spots by getting into them, and mostly getting out of them. But the best way to handle trouble spots is to avoid them in the first place. That's what this part of the course is all about.
We spend most of our time looking ahead. We couldn't keep the car on the road if we didn't. But do we always really see what's ahead? This is one of the two biggest causes of crashes. About a fifth of all crashes, including 700,000 injuries, result from not paying enough attention to what's ahead. Sometimes drivers are too busy talking with others in the car, or outside the car, or they're just daydreaming. Whatever the reason, just an instant's lack of attention can mean and everything that goes with a crash, like out-of-sight insurance premiums and possible loss of license. Throughout this course, you'll be tested on where you're looking and what you're looking at, in the video and in the car. Looking ahead is only a part of it. How far ahead is another. Beginning drivers tend to focus on the road just in front of the car. That doesn't give us much time to react. And even if we manage to react in time, what about the guy behind us? Keeping our eyes focused well down the road gives us a heads up on what's happening, and lets us come to a gradual, even stop.
In addition to letting us drive safely, looking well down the road can help keep us moving. For example, seeing that bus stop ahead lets us make a smooth lane change. And away we go. If we hadn't noticed the bus until we came up behind it, we'd have had to wait for following traffic to pass before we could pull out. Seeing those hazard lights up ahead gives us time to make a smooth lane change. And seeing that yellow light up ahead gives us time to come to a smooth stop. Looking ahead includes scanning the areas to either side of the road. Whoops, that was a close one. Let's go back.
If we saw that white car disappear behind the minivan, we could figure the driver might not see us and might make a right on red. What's at the side of the road now may be in it in a minute, like that truck pulling away very slowly. Seeing it up ahead gives us a chance to adjust. Here's someone else who may shortly be in our path.
Seeing signs early also helps. Seeing that sign lets us slow down and slide in behind the van, rather than being stuck when the lane comes to an end.
How far ahead do we need to look? As a general rule, we should be looking far enough ahead to give ourselves ample time to adjust to whatever we see. If we are looking at least 15 seconds ahead, we should have time to adjust to whatever we see. Here on a city street, that's about 1 block. Out here in the open road, traveling at 55, that's about 1/4 mile. Unfortunately, roads don't have little lines showing us where 15 seconds starts. We just need to have a picture in our mind's eye. One way to get that picture is this. When we're driving down the road, pick a point in the distance like that sign and start counting to 15. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006, 1007, 1008, 1009, 1010, 1011, 1012, 1013, 1014, 1015. If we reach the point before we reach 1015, we need to look further ahead.
We can't always make out things 15 seconds away, like that warning sign.
We couldn't really see that pedestrian until he was fairly close. The main thing is to look far enough ahead to be able to adjust early and gradually to what we can see. Okay, let's take a drive and see what we can see. In each scene, there will be something up ahead we'll need to react to. The picture will stop at that point and we'll be asked what we saw.
So what did we see here? That orange construction sign was easy, but you had to be looking well ahead to see the flashing arrows.
And what did we see here?
The flashers told us the car was stopped and we'd have to change lanes. So let's keep going.
And what here?
Right, a vehicle blocking the left lane ahead.
What about now? Here's a double-barreled search task. We need to see up ahead and to the side at the same time. There's no trick to that, or is there? Go ahead. Focus our eyes on the oncoming car. Don't let them move. If we stay strictly focused on the oncoming car, we can't see the one on the right. Yes, we can tell that something is there, but we can't make out that it's a car unless we shift our eyes. Research shows that if we are staring at something ahead, we can't really see things even a few degrees to either side. That's why our eyes need to move from side to side all the time while we are driving. Just before the scene ended, what did we see that required our attention?
The oncoming car could start its turn before we get there. The truck could make a right on red, or someone could get out of a parked car. In a shopping area, those parked cars could hide a lot of trouble.
Look well down the road. Search from side to side, but always be looking ahead. Look away only when we have to, and then for no more than 1 second.
Of course, she saw the stop sign and started slowing. Okay. Check to the left. Okay. Check to the right. We need to wait a second. Okay, it's safe to go. Where did he come from? Well, let's see it again. We looked left and no one was coming. Then we checked to the right.
But as we were waiting for that car, look who pulled out of a driveway and came up the street.
Not seeing cars at intersections is one of the two biggest causes of car crashes, along with not seeing what's happening ahead. We acted correctly by checking to our left first. That's the first path of traffic we have to cross. And then we check to the right for the next path we'll have to cross. But we should never make that never ever start to cross a path of traffic without checking for traffic as we do it. Right turns are a bit easier than crossing an intersection. We only have to worry about cars from one direction. This time we can go. Or can we? Traffic includes pedestrians as well as automobile traffic. At a stop sign, we're required to yield to pedestrians as well as cars. We want to cross this street. What do? The safest thing to do is wait until traffic clears. But we can't always do that. The next best thing is to edge slowly forward. Anyone coming in the far lane can see us in time to signal. When we have a clear view, we can move out. We've seen what trouble we can get into when we enter someone else's path at an intersection. What about when someone does it to us? With no traffic light, the only thing that keeps him from pulling out is seeing us. By keeping a sharp eye out, we could see that he wasn't even looking our way.
Same thing here. With that driver looking to his left, we couldn't count on his seeing us.
Any place with a lot of pedestrian traffic bears watching. The same is true where there are kids.
It's worth taking a quick look any place someone might enter our path, even when the other driver has a red light.
Close to 50,000 people are hurt each year when someone runs a red light.
This driver did a good job in looking down the road and recognizing that the car ahead would have to stop. But he goofed by not looking to his right before starting a lane change. If he had been using his mirrors, he'd have seen that car start its own lane change and start passing us. It's a good idea to check our mirrors frequently to know what's happening behind us.
Sometimes it will alert us to people we'd just as soon not be there. Or people that may be hard to see after they've come alongside us. Keeping an eye on developments behind us is a way of avoiding surprises.
Another time that we need to check behind us is when we slow down suddenly. We can see that car slowing, but the driver behind may not be able to. Or he may be momentarily distracted and not notice what's happening ahead. We're planning to turn into a driveway up ahead, but the driver behind us might think that our signal means that we'll turn at the intersection beyond and not expect us to slow suddenly. We'll talk about how to handle these situations in the next lesson. But before we can react to danger from behind, we need at least to see it, which means checking behind any time we have to slow suddenly. What do we do next?
We expect that a passing car may pull into the deceleration lane and block our path.
We're turning right at this intersection. When can we start the turn? You knew he was there, right? We've seen how important it is to look ahead, to the side, and behind. We've seen a variety of hazards in the many traffic scenes we've driven through. We've been able to handle most of them by looking in the right place at the right time. But some hazards are not very obvious. We can be looking at them and still not recognize them, like this one. We have a better view of both cars than they have of each other. We can see what's going to happen. Unfortunately, drivers don't always have the time to think about the possibilities that can develop in traffic and what to do about them. They have to react. How are people able to react so quickly? Well, as experienced drivers, they've seen situations like this before. Their minds see one car coming down the road and one about to pull out. It sounds an alarm that tells them to get their foot off of the accelerator, their eyes to start looking for a way out, and their hands to get ready to steer. So when the car pulls out, they're prepared.
They apply the brake enough to slow down and to be able to turn onto the roadside.
Was this driver prepared to react the first time a situation like this developed? Probably not. But after this happens once, drivers quickly learn to recognize the signs. Just like children learn to recognize the signs of something too hot to touch. It's from experiences like these that drivers learn to react quickly to hazardous situations and to lower their crash rate by 2/3 over the first 2 years of driving. This video will present you with a lot of hazardous situations from which you can learn the signs of trouble. One type of hazard is the person on the road who can't see us. Remember this guy? Here's another. A driver would have to back halfway into the street before seeing. By keeping our eyes peeled, we're able to spot one that may be on the verge of backing. How about here? He's so intent on catching that taxi that he isn't looking our way at all. Here's one more. He'll have a hard time seeing us. Another type of hazard is people who can see us, but who are distracted. These people seem to be searching for an address. It might be a good idea to keep our distance. It's good that we didn't try to pass them. People hard at work aren't always paying attention. It's our job to look out for them. This guy's probably new on the job. He may never live to be old on the job. Some people are more confused than distracted. We're not sure where this tourist is going. Neither is the tourist.
This driver may have missed his exit. We expect him to slow down. Finally, there are those situations that create a problem for some driver, which suddenly becomes our problem. His problem could have been our problem if we hadn't left room for him.
His problem could have been ours if we hadn't recognized it before he did. Well, now that we know what kinds of hazards we face, let's see how well we recognize them when they happen unexpectedly. What's the hazard here? Why is that driver in the deceleration lane suddenly braking? There's plenty of room left to slow down. No, it's a good bet that he suddenly realized he took the wrong exit. The brake lights are a tip-off. The only reason to apply the brakes is to shift out of park. This driver is getting ready to roll. What should we do here? People working on a car tend to be preoccupied. If the driver decides to try starting it, he may walk into the street. The best thing to do is give him the whole lane. Not everything is a hazard. That pedestrian was going the other way. Even if he decided to turn around and come back, we'd have plenty of time to respond. Spotting hazards early lets us respond quickly, smoothly, and smartly.
Certainly, that driver should never have changed lanes right in front of us. If he had given us a little warning, we could have been prepared. Signaling is one of the ways we have of communicating with the others with whom we share the road. Communicating means letting others know both where we are and what we plan to do. In some circles, it pays to be seen in the right company. On the road, it pays just to be seen.
Looks clear to pass. Oops, it sure paid here.
At night, headlights light up the road. During the day, they light up the cars. We don't need the candle power of full headlights. Special low-power daytime running lights serve the purpose and extend the life of the headlights. With or without daytime running lights, other drivers may have trouble seeing us. That's one way of communicating presence. But a safer way would be to keep our car where it can easily be seen. Back here, the driver can see us in the rear mirror, and we're out of the way if he doesn't. Some drivers have trouble seeing right behind them. Trucks, buses, mobile homes, and some other vehicles have a blind zone directly behind. Here, it's best to drop back far enough to be seen in their side mirrors. If we can see the mirrors, the driver can see us. Here's another time it really pays to be seen. This is not a great place to be, but sometimes there's no choice. The first precaution is to stop where drivers can see the car from a distance, not just over a hill. or around a curve. And we need to get as far off the road as possible. Emergency flashers make the car more visible and show that it's stopped. Emergency triangles placed well back give even more warning. Flares are even better, particularly at night. If none of these is available, someone with a clock or flag will do. They need to be well upstream and well off the road. If help is needed, a cell phone or CB radio will give direct contact with an emergency service. Otherwise, putting the hood up and attaching a white cloth to the antenna, door handle, or window is a signal that help is needed. Remember this? A blast on the horn sure communicated our presence, but we could have done the same thing earlier. A light beep sends a simple "I'm here" message. There are a number of times that communicating our presence this way can prevent trouble, like when coming up on somebody on foot or on a bike, or somebody who is not paying attention or who may have trouble seeing us, or where our view ahead is blocked, like a steep hill, sharp curve, or leaving a narrow alley. There are times when even a gentle toot on the horn isn't a great idea. For example, if we have to pass on the right, many drivers will react to a signal by moving to the right. It's also not a great idea when someone's in our way, or when we've been wronged, or just to greet a friend. The horn is a means of communication, to be used only when there is something important to communicate. Now, on to the second half of communication. This is the most common form of communication on the road.
The law requires us to signal anytime we change our position. This includes turns at corners, merges, and lane changes.
Most everyone knows these signals, but there are some things not everyone knows. One is that the law requires that we signal well before a maneuver to give others time to react. Another is the need to signal every change of position, whether we see anyone around us or not.
Motorcyclists are particularly hard to see, and we sure want to see this one.
Here, we plan to turn into the driveway beyond the next intersection. What happens if we signal now? The other driver assumed we planned to turn at the intersection. False signals can be just as bad as no signals. If we plan to turn beyond an intersection, we hold off signaling until we are well into the intersection. There's another false signal. He probably changed lanes back there a way and the signal didn't cancel.
Straightening the wheel after a lane change may not automatically cancel the signal. It's best to do it by hand.
How can we signal speed changes in advance? The brake lights only come on when the car starts to slow down. If we had someone behind us, we'd like to give a warning before slowing down, particularly if they were close behind. Tapping the brake pedal several times quickly will flash the brakes. It's a real attention getter and warns the driver behind that something is about to happen.
Okay, we're going to wrap up day 3. This is Unit 5 videos. The code, special code is TBC 7368. Then once again, it's TBC 7368. Thank you very much and look forward to seeing you on day 4.